Troops, this is the Eagle Podcast, the home of accountability. This week on the Eagle Podcast, I welcome legend, fell runner, ultra runner. She runs 100 miles like we run 5Ks. She's ran the Barclay, she's ran this, she's ran that. She could run rings round you. It's the legendary Nicky Spinks. If you're lacking a little bit of motivation, or maybe you were training for an event which you think's not going to happen, I have got the absolute pinnacle of ultra running. It's Nicky Spinks. Nicky, how you doing?
Yeah, very good. Had a good day.
Good day. Nicky, I don't know if a lot of people know this about you, but you are a British farmer. That is a hard job. What does life look like at the moment for you on the farm? COVID-19, has it affected you?
It hasn't really affected our farming so much. We're not going to market, which we probably would be doing on a Tuesday. We usually go to market, but apart from that, we haven't really got anything to sell. And what we have got to sell, you can sell privately. So yeah, I mean, we are key workers. We could be going out a lot more than what we are, but we choose to be more at home at the moment.
And would you have people coming in from the local area to help you work on the farm, or is it just yourselves?
No, it's just me and my husband. But
wow.
Yeah, I think at the moment we were planning to be away, weekend, so we would have had a herdsman. Our friend comes in and looks after the cows, so we would have seen him, and yeah, we'd have had more interaction with other farmers. But we're just all keeping ourselves to ourselves. The only person that came on is this week. We had the footman come to the bulls and do their feet this week. So
right.
we're not like, farmers aren't exactly hugging people. So it wasn't really a problem. Your distance.
Yeah. Your herd, are you raising beef cattle?
Yeah.
Right, okay. A friend of mine has a dairy herd. So she's up at early doors. So that being said, you must be somewhere in the same 3:30, 2:30 ballpark, maybe? Oh,
no, we don't. Not for beef cattle. No.
All right, okay.
I get up at 6 now. I've got into a routine because I like a routine. I think people are very similar to animals. I mean, we are animals. We like routine. 100%. So as soon as this happened, I had to ditch the fact that I wasn't going to the Barclay the following week, sort out, all that sort of stuff. That was not a very pleasant day. But then I just thought, well, I need a routine every morning. I'll just get up and go for a run. I rarely run. I don't run every day, but I've just decided that that's what I'm going to do, because I'm also aware that, we never know. After Easter, we might go, right, okay, we need to lock down totally and you're not allowed to exercise.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm going out because I never know. I'm not taking it for granted that I'll be able to go out the next day.
It's interesting, Nicky, because as a society, we do take things for granted. And what do you think this process will teach us? I
think to appreciate stuff. I mean, I still, Friday I was doing my long run, and while I was out there, I sort of, a little bit selfishly, I thought, this isn't as bad for me as when I had cancer, and I didn't know when it was going to end. I mean, we don't know when this is going to end, but we do know it is going to end.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there, and obviously because you're a really robust, arduous person, so I feel like people in your mold will find COVID-19 not as stressful, and it sounds to me like you're literally going about day-to-day life as you would go about day-to-day life, apart from obviously the race season's being cancelled.
I mean, yesterday, I don't know, for some reason I just had a grumpy day. It was just, I couldn't really put my finger on what had made me grumpy. I needed to not be with my husband because I was going to take it out on him, which it's not his fault. I was having a grumpy day. And I was just glad when I went to bed and I woke up today and I've had a good day. So, but I think I learned that when I had cancer as well, that because emotionally you don't really know what's going on in your head. Some days you're going to have a bad day, and just accept it and just get through that day, go to bed, and the next day will be better.
And the next day get better. So you brought some really good topics there, and we sort of spoke before the podcast. How do people keep training for events they don't know are going to go ahead? How do you keep motivated? What are you doing to keep motivated?
Yeah, because I think I don't know that any of my races, the only race now that hasn't been cancelled, although there would be fell races that I could do in July or August. I need to enter yet, but the Tour de Giants, which is in Italy at the end of August, it's pretty doubtful, I think.
Yeah, especially where Italy are as a country right now, and even if the best will in the world, people say lockdown's finished. I don't know about you, like traveling abroad. I can see us being home birds for maybe the whole of 2020, and it opens up. It opens up actually an opportunity to maybe. Would you ever consider going and doing a race where normally, say you were going to go to Italy in August, but you can't? Would you look at something in the UK and think, well, I've never done that race, but now I can?
So I've always liked Scotland. I've spent 100%. A lot of time in the Lake District. I've sort of, and then I went to not moved to Wales, but I've done quite a lot in Wales. There's still a lot of exploring I could do in Wales, and it's very near home. But Scotland's just, I mean, I've got some books now for Arran and for Skye. And so I think initially I'd be looking to just go up there and do some like mountainous challenges or something. I've never been on the Coolin Ridge, and everybody raves about it.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely not really. I'm not. Yeah, if they cancel the Tour de Giants, I think I've already got my head around the fact that I wouldn't be going. I'd feel sorry for the people that are out there that, you know, I booked my Airbnb, and I feel sorry for those people.
It's catastrophic, and you know we are gonna feel it as a society, and I'm in the same boat in the regards of we've booked to do the Hardman with 60. That'll be my first event, like ultra running event ever. I've just booked it because I wanted a challenge. I'm going to go from half marathon to 62 miles, which is a super challenge, but I'm really looking forward to. But I am finding it hard to keep that motivation, thinking, because obviously, Nicky, it gets hard, doesn't it? You know, when you start running distance, and I'm not really a runner. Like, I'm forcing myself to become a runner, so I know how hard it's going to be for me. Hopefully, John Steele's got a category that he calls First Shire, so I'm hoping to get in the First Shire category. What would you say top tip for people to stay motivated on a routine for a race?
Yeah, so at the moment, obviously, I like going to big mountains and doing quite a lot of hiking and walking up and getting to the ascent in, say, 3,000 ascent a weekend or something. And I can't do that around here. I can run for about 12, 13 miles and get about 1,000 meters of ascent.
Right.
But what I've tried to work on is my sort of what I think is my weaknesses. I'm not very good at running on the flat or running consistently. So I've got a 12-mile run now, and I run all of it, which is very unusual. You know, I'm not used to doing that. So what I've tried to do now is work on the areas that I'm not good at. So I've been doing some speed work, short speed work, and then doing distant running for like 2.5 hours over 13 miles and running all of it, which I'm finding hard. So I'm sort of just challenging myself in different ways, really. I'm also doing plyometrics and strength training, which I know it benefits me, but it's just really hard when I can go for mountains to stay in my kitchen and do hopping and jumping and lunges and stuff like that. But now I'm doing them, and I'm seeing the benefit of that as well. So I think I don't know really what motivates me. I just keep wanting to keep going so I don't lose my fitness, I think.
Yeah, it's a dead interesting. It's a dead interesting point. You've added great variety to your training regimen.
Yeah,
And obviously, I don't know if you're on Strava or any sort of running group app, but I find Strava and having a community, we've got like a little bit of a challenge going at the moment where we're sort of uh, racing against each other. Like we call it the door-to-door challenge. So I say if a
yeah,
friend of mine lives 7 kilometers away from me, we both leave our house at the same time, social distancing, obviously. We pass each other at like almost the halfway point, and then coming back, you're thinking, oh, if I'm
yeah,
here and he's there, then I know I'm ahead. And I always feel like competition keeps you
yeah.
keeps you motivated. What's your take on the explosion of technology and running apps and Garmin's and Fitbits? Do you
Um,
subscribe?
no, I mean my watch downloads, and I'm on Strava, but I keep everything quiet because I just don't want everybody going, well, why have you done this today, and why are you
Uh,
doing all that? I just think this is what I do that works for me, and I don't really want people
yeah, fair enough.
following it and questioning it, and yeah. Um,
Nicky, to question you, you would have to have one hell of a CV, and I don't think there's many people in the world could be pointing fingers. One thing which sort of interests me, and I don't know if a lot of people take it seriously, but how important would you say, and what do you do for nutrition before, during, and after races?
I eat a lot of, well, not a lot of meat, but I eat a lot of vegetables. I'm a beef farmer, so we've always got beef in the
Yeah,
freezer.
yeah, 100%.
And I tend to make all my own food, so I don't buy any processed like
Right.
food at all, or ready meals or whatever.
Yeah,
No, and I think that's what keeps me going a lot of the time. Just yeah, good wholesome food every day, home cooked.
yeah.
It takes a lot of time and planning or whatever, but
Mm.
get used to eating it, then you don't like a pre-packed pizza or whatever because you're making your own. At the moment, yeah, it's funny not being able to just go and have fish and chips. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
it'll make it all the more special when we can.
it's funny you should mention that. I don't know how much you know about the Hard Mover series, or if you've taken part in them,
Yeah,
but it's
I
it,
haven't done
it
any of the races, but yeah, I know about the series. Yeah,
yeah, it's unbelievable what John did, what he created. It's such a great vibe, and me and my partner, we were hiking from Saltburn to Whitby, which is roughly 21 miles, and we just happened to do it on the day of the Hardmore 60, and all of a sudden all these people started coming past us with sort of, I'd only ever really seen road runners, so I was like, oh, why are they carrying like, chest rigs and bottles, and sort of got talking to one guy, and I was just, oh, what's going on? And he said, oh, it's the Hardmore 60 today. And I was like, oh, obviously not correlating that the 60 meant miles. And I said, oh, how far is it? And he went, oh, it's 60 miles. And I was like, in a day? It's like, well, I'm going to go for 14 hours. And I was like, 14 hours? And I was just fascinated by it. And that's how I got into sort of researching. And then obviously I found the Barclay, and then, Steve Birkinshaw and what he's achieved, and Paul Turney and Jasmine Paris and yourself. And I'm like, this is beyond, like, mentally, how do people do it? And nutrition's a big part of it, Nicky, but being able to go to a dark place, can you train that, or does it already have to be inside your DNA, do you think?
no, I think you can train and you can train yourself in a way, but experience just gets you through it. Because once you've been through a dark place and come out the other side, then you should be able to tell yourself the next time, well, I'm going to come out the other side.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first time I had a bad patch was on my first BG. And when I came out the other side after about 2.5 hours of stumbling along
Yeah.
thinking, when, yeah, I suddenly somehow felt better and carried on going for another sort of 10 hours. But it's hard when you first get into it to realize that you can. And a friend told me, she said, you might have a bad patch and you'll just feel like you might feel really sick, or you're sleepy, or you've no energy, or all of those. but just keep going and keep trying to eat, and you'll come out the other side. And I think that was the best piece of advice anybody could have given me, because when you go into them, you know, you're halfway round a 24-hour round. You don't think at that point that you're going to be able to finish, because your body's really telling you to stop. It doesn't know what's going on. It's never done this before in its life. So yeah, it's had enough. It's 4 o'clock in the morning usually.
Yeah.
It's missed night's sleep. That's what's doing it, really. It's like, well, hang on a minute. What happened to sleep?
Yeah. Is there almost a certain time? Is there a certain triggers for it? Is it where you think it's going to get tough? Can you feel it come on, or does it just snap its fingers and it's here?
No, because sometimes it could come on really early in a round. It could
Really?
come on with like 4 hours, and you just go, whoa, shit, I feel really bad. I've only done 4 hours. And then it's even worse then, because you think, I've got like another 20 hours to go and I already feel shit. But you just go through that then, and then you don't feel rubbish for the next like 20 hours.
And do you take, I know the ultra running community is really supportive of each other, where his road running is a bit more competitive. Yeah. I know I'm not saying you're not competitive, but you're more supportive of each other. Do you sort of take comfort in thinking, well, I've had my bad moment, and I know that the person either in front of me or behind me maybe still have that to come? Is there a psychological element to it?
I've never really thought of it like that, even in, say, 100-mile race, when I've just gone through a bad patch, and yeah, you're more concerned with how you are than
what others are doing.
Not everybody, you don't always have a bad patch. Weird. That's why it's so interesting, actually, because you never know. Like it's the same with your stomach. You never quite know if you're gonna start to have a bad stomach and start to throw up or whatever. You could sometimes go in and your stomach will be absolutely fine. Yeah. And then sometimes you'll go in and 3 hours after starting, you start to feel sick, and you might be sick and stuff. And then, yeah.
It's an interesting one, and the reason, sort of before you come on the podcast, I watched the Dragon back the year that Steve Birkinshaw won it, and one thing that fascinated me, the guy behind Steve, every time he came through a checkpoint, his first question was, "What's out? How long Steve been in?" And I thought, that has really got inside this guy's head. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's almost forgot that he is an elite runner himself, but he's more putting all this time and effort into what Steve was doing. And I thought, and I asked Steve when I spoke to him, he wasn't thinking about he was thinking about his race. And I thought, there's a lot at play, isn't there? Psychologically. And one thing that interests me is, when you set off on a 100-mile race, at that start, are you thinking about the first checkpoint, a time split? Like, you're not thinking about the finish, are you? Because it's too far away.
Yeah, a bit of both, really. Yeah, I'm thinking about trying to keep eating and drinking early on. Right. You're not going off fast, because not everybody, but a lot of people set off, say on the UTMB, they just set off way too fast.
Really?
And it's easy just to get dragged along, because you're feeling fairly fresh. You've probably not run for like a week.
Yeah.
You're eager to get going, so it's really easy to actually just run at that pace, even though it's too fast. You really need reining yourself in a lot. So yeah, I think about the first checkpoint. I'm always happier when I get more than halfway through, or through the first night is obviously, like, the UTMB will start at 6 o'clock at night, so you're always thinking about that night, and I'm always happier when it's like 4 o'clock. You've got 10 or 12 hours
when it's over, sort of thing, that first section.
Yeah, I think that's what. So when I set off, I'm always trying to rein myself in and get into the first checkpoint and try and sort out what's in the checkpoints, because that's the first time you'll ever see what food you're going to be offered throughout the rest of the So I always use the first checkpoint as a bit of a trial run, pick up one of everything, and then, you get to know, then you can try, your stomach's quite good then. So you can try all the bars they give you, and then you can decide, right, I don't like those because they're just disgusting or full of
Yeah.
orange. I can't chew them. And then when you're feeling completely zonked, you go into the checkpoints, you just pick up the ones you like.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And a friend of mine, Nigel Denton, he tells a funny story. He ran a marathon in the desert in Morocco, and he said it was sort of all a little bit higgledy-piggledy. And he said, and when I got to my first checkpoint, someone handed me an orange, but even the orange wasn't peeled. And he's like, right, so I have to run a marathon in the desert, but now as well, he's like, I have to now run and peel an orange at the same time. And he said, I expended loads of energy peeling an orange, thinking, I wish I'd brought more food, because like you said, that set the tone. So he knew when I got to the next checkpoint, I'm gonna have to peel another orange. And he said that he ended up peeling like 10 oranges in the entire time that he got round. I thought that's really funny. Do you have people who crew races for you? And you let's talk about the preparation. No, you don't.
Yeah, I suppose sometimes.
Yeah.
TMB, I had some people at the checkpoints, especially later on. I always think you're fine on your own at the beginning because you're fresh, you can think straight. It's later on when you've gone through that night of not having any sleep. It's really good to have somebody there, because otherwise you just waste loads of time faffing. Your brain bushy, you can't really think straight.
Yeah.
You don't notice the time going round so fast either. You know, people can spend like an hour in a checkpoint. They think they've only been there 15 minutes. But you just get really, really inefficient the longer you go without sleep. So, I find having somebody there later on just to say, eat this, drink this, wear this, get out, basically.
It's almost like the body and the mind become separated, don't they? The longer you go, the incoordinated thinking. And even something such as tying a set of shoelaces can become, you've lost dexterity, haven't you? And other what we take for granted, peeling a bar, peeling an orange, filling a camelback. These menial tasks, once you get fatigued, and my background is I was a soldier, and we use the term mong in it. So that sort of means just, everything gets dead sluggish and it takes you longer to do everything that you do. One thing I always seem to hate is filling camelbacks. Like, there's just something about filling a camelback. I think, can we please invent a way of doing this a little bit more streamlined? Because it just get everything out of your rucksack, mess around, and it never quite goes back in the way you had it. But no, it's interesting. And if you're running 100 miles, would you break down? I'm army, so I sort of do everything regimented. I would have, right, these are the shoes I'm going to wear at this point. These are the socks I want to wear. You sort of vary the same in how you approach a big race that you're going to think it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, I try and get everything really organized. So my rucksack, I'll always have the same, like waters this side, energy drink this side, bars at this side, gels in that side.
Yeah.
Just the same system, so that you're never faffing and trying to find stuff where if you stop to take stuff out of your rucksack like that, you're liable to lose something else.
Yeah.
And then as I'm running into a checkpoint, I tend to try and get my brain organized into like the 5 things that I want to do. So first of all, what is the most important thing that you want to do in this checkpoint, whether your feet are hurt, something like that. So spend that maybe half an hour as you're running into the checkpoint thinking about what you want in the checkpoint, rather than running into that then having because and that way I have found that you don't leave the checkpoint without having done that really important thing that you do, like change your socks if you've got a blister, or get some energy drink if you run out of something like that, so try an order of importance as you're actually going into the checkpoint, so that, because you can be running along on your own fairly much, and then on your own, and your brain's quite, you're in a routine, you're running, it's fine. You get into the checkpoint, it's hot, it's like there's loads of people might be asking you questions, there's loads of other people everywhere, and all of a sudden everything just, you don't know what you want, and you haven't really thought it through. So
it's an interesting point, because I suppose if you're running a long section, you can almost go into what I like to call like a cruise control mode, where it's almost like your brain is dropping down activity. But before you get into the rest point, it's like, right, switch back on now. What's hurting? What needs sorting? And you've got to stay motivated, haven't you? You raise a brilliant point about people coming into checkpoints. And I've seen it when I've worked on large hiking events. People come into checkpoints, and before they know it, they've lost like 35, 40 minutes. And it's like, come in, do what you got to do, and get the race finished. Chill out when the race is finished. It's no good taking a rest.
Because I'm going into a checkpoint and go, right, you want to be out of here by usually a simple time, like half or the o'clock, so that you remember it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you can get into a checkpoint, you then, well, when did I actually get in? How long have I been in here?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And feet is something that that I've obviously just get asked all the time with all the hiking stuff that I do. But for me, I always talk about prevention is better than cure. And I don't personally believe that foot powder and fresh socks and a towel is the way to go. What about yourself? Just same method?
Yeah. Fresh socks, a check over, and then some powder and off.
People get bogged down in cutting tape and Compede and anti-blister roller, and it's like the paras went across the Falklands on foot powder carrying all that kit. Let's keep it simple. You attempted what some people call the hardest race, the Barkley Marathon, and I've sort of done a bit of homework on the Barkley. And would you say it's hard because you don't know what you're going into, then, comparing it to, say, the Marathon des Sables, which a lot of people obviously say is brutal?
Yeah.
Is it more that I don't know realistically what time I'm going to start? I can't pre-recce the route. You remind me of someone who's very old school, so map and compass more so than all this fancy technology. So that's not an issue for you. But a new runner maybe relies on a Garmin or relies on a Suntour GPS system, and taking these comforts off them and saying, no, we don't tell you what time we start. And by the way, there's no real map recce. How do you find that process?
It did throw me to start with last year, but then I just thought, well, I'm going to have to approach it a bit like a mountain marathon, where you don't know where you're going till the morning of the event.
Yeah.
The not knowing when I was going to start was also, I just didn't really know how I was going to take to that. It was a bit weird.
Yeah.
I didn't do that well. But then I don't think I would have done, even if I'd known the start was going to be 9 o'clock in the morning, because it's the night before and you're in a campsite. There's noises. So I try and, I don't let lack of sleep bother me.
You're too robust for that.
And not knowing where I was going, that was hard to take to start with. But again, so that was really that's the disappointing thing about not having gone back and attempted it again this year, because I'd really studied the map where we went last year.
Right.
I was running through it in my head. If I was going on a long journey for like 4 hours, I'd be just asking myself questions about what each book looked like and what the ascent was like. I was running through the route because we only did it clockwise.
Yeah.
I'd have had to have done it anti-clockwise, so I reversed the route and I pictured it in my head this year. And whether I can keep all that in my head for another year, it's just like, I think what I have to do is just go back to it and every month go, right, let's have a run through of the Barkley.
Yeah. It really fascinates me as a race from a psychological point of view, because he's a very, very, very clever man in what he's done there. Like, even the entry process, he's designed that to sort of already start throwing spanners in the works. Like, you've got to write an essay, haven't you, to get in, and it's like, he's stacking the cards very, very early on in his favour. It's really, really psychologically interesting, and the fact that so few people have completed it. If he sort of ran it more conventionally, I think you would get more people finishing it. But I think it's because he uses such strong psychological blockers that people either just, they just can't they can't compute. It's really interesting. So you're going to go back
Yeah,
2021. Wow.
try it.
Wow.
I'll again and see if I get in again. And yeah,
There's some other sort of really high profile people interested in it. Cam Haynes and David Goggins, I've heard them talking about running the Barclay. He's done a great job of promoting the Barclay, and when you get people like yourself and people like that talking about going and doing the Barclay, I think it's amazing. Are you aware of David Goggins? He's a very interesting character.
no,
He talks about putting calluses on the mind. He's run the is it the Badwater 100? He's run lots of sort of ridiculously tough races, and he's all about being uncomfortable all the time. Like, he loves being uncomfortable. That's his driving factor. He's worth a listen. He's a very interesting guy on Instagram. But one thing that's really going well at the moment, Nicky, and I said to you in an Instagram message, lots of young women are looking at elite runners like yourself and saying, wow, let's get in there and let's put the fellas to shame. The field is strong. Yourself, Jasmine Paris, it's Fiona Oakes as well. I mean, Fiona Oakes' story is, again, it's unbelievable. Why do you think there's this big uplift in women wanting to really get amongst these big distance races?
I think we're just, because I always think that in the 80s, 70s, 80s, we weren't really allowed to run marathons.
That's crazy.
So we're sort of 30 years behind the blokes, the women are, in trying to think like, well, actually, little girls, instead of looking at ballet, they might be looking at running.
Yeah, well,
and I'm now looking at football, women's football's, really taking off. So I think it's just a sort of natural progression that the more of us that do it and show that other women can do it, then the girls will be like, oh, I want to be like her. And they'll go out and work hard. And then, 1 in 10 or 1 in 100 or whatever, like men, like Jasmine, she's really come through. She's actually challenging the men.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, one in however many will actually be really right up there. They've just got the DNA, the training, and they can really compete.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's dead interesting because me and my partner, we're planning on running the 60 together. Now, I'm really worried at the back end of the race, I'm really going to flag because I'm larger, muscle density, bone density, and I feel like those last 20 miles, I'm going to really suffer. And she's going to absolutely terrorize me. And if it wasn't for that fact that I'm the navigator, she might leave me. Do you think long distance running lends itself better to women's physiologically?
Yeah. We haven't got the male physique. We can't do short distances as fast as what men can do them. But as soon as you get over like 2 hours, as soon as you get into 30 miles, it's more like you have to look after yourself. You have to be able to pace yourself at the beginning of the race. You have to have self-discipline.
Yeah.
You have to feed yourself when you don't really want to. Like Jasmine's sleep strategy on the spine was incredible, and just things like that. So we know we're not as fast as men, so we look at all the other aspects that we can hone in on and improve.
Smarter. You run smarter.
Yeah.
It's an incredible feat, and I'm just wondering sort of some of the big big records that have been set previously, and I'll use like Paul Turney's record. How long before a woman says, do you know what, I think I can do that and break it, because almost it doesn't matter, does it? It's that far and it's that tough that it comes down to something different than a chromosome. It's a completely different beast. And I heard today about a race. It sounds bizarre, but it's an ultra race, but you do a 4-mile loop, and it starts, you've got to get around within an hour and then get back, and everyone starts on the hour. And I'm like, wow, that's a real game changer, because if you can do 4 mile in say half an hour, boom, you're round in half an hour, but I can do it in 45 minutes. We're both starting again at that start line, but it's about who's got more mental toughness. So people who maybe's nowhere near as fast, actually, once you get into this deep water, maybe they can win that sort of race. Has that ever interested you? You ever done anything like that before?
No, I haven't. No. Yeah, it's called the Backyard Ultra. It's another one of his ideas.
Crazy, brilliant, love it.
And it's all about, well, not all about mental strength, obviously, it's physical as well, but it's about sleep deprivation and the fact that you've just got to get around that 4 miles and then you've just got to be back on that start line again on the hour.
That's some mad science. Nicky, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. We're flying through the time and I'm conscious of your time, so I'm sort of going to close down the show with what I like to call the 5 whats. COVID-19 has caused a lot of people to change routines. So that being said, first one, what does your day look like?
Well, it's the alarm goes off at 6, but if I'm awake, then I'll get up because I usually like to set off on my run before 7 because the footpaths just get busy. I like to take like 1 or 2 dogs with me, so I don't like to meet other people. And so I get up and then come back from that. We do the farm jobs and then find more farm jobs, like returning cows out at the moment, or I'm actually trying to catch up with all the office work at the moment, which is tedious, but honey, I'm working through my list.
No, it's great. The second one, you've sort of covered it. What workouts are you doing?
Yeah, so I run in the morning, and then I've done myself a plyometrics plan because I know it makes sense, but when I'm too busy or I've always got something better to do than plyometrics. But at the moment, I'm doing them 3 times a week, and I can already see the benefits. So maybe when this is over, it'll give me the encouragement to keep going with them.
Any particular program, or is it something that you've made yourself? Are you following someone's program?
No, I've made it up myself.
Brilliant.
It's a running program,
right?
But I've I've designed it around me and also around my kitchen. So
brilliant! That's the best place for it. Yeah, class.
Boxes and all the rest, the stuff that you need. So it's just what I've got.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people like at the moment turning kitchens, conservatories, garages into these new sort of fangled gyms. Finding a way. That's what we do. Find a way. Third one. What have you started? Obviously, you've started plyometrics. Anything else? Anything new that's come on the radar?
I've bought some curtain material and I've just read a book. So I don't know how I've started it yet. I haven't quite worked up the courage to actually cut the material yet. But,
what have you stopped? Anything that you enjoyed doing before the world stopped, which has now stopped you?
Mountains and running in the mountains. God, racing. Well, although we've started like you said, your doorstep thing.
Yeah.
Now got like a virtual series, so we've got like a 4-mile route that we do every Saturday.
Oh, brilliant!
Like each other, but not.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Just a one away from that. Do you have a favourite mountain by any chance? Is there anywhere in particular that you love? Any particular mountain?
No, I could go to any. Peak District, Lake District, Wales.
Yeah.
I was exploring Scotland, so back to Scotland where it's bigger and more remote.
Yeah.
Areas there.
So, fifth and final one. What's the first thing you're going to do after lockdown's finished? I think I might know this.
Yeah, go to Scotland.
Go to Scotland.
That's why I'm doing all the work that I am at the moment, all my accounts and everything. So that as soon as I can go.
I mean, what one place in Scotland where I love is Galloway. I don't know if you've ever been to Galloway. Beautiful. It's almost like a mini Scotland, and everyone obviously drives past it to go Ben Nevis, etc. But I love Galloway. It's probably one of my favourite places in the UK. It's so much history. Obviously, Robert the Bruce and all that sort of stuff, and it's a magical place. Nicky, I'm honoured that you'd come on the show. I think you're an absolute unbelievable human being. You're a real inspiration to loads of people out there who are looking to get fit, looking to get into running, take running to the next level. Where can people find you if you want them to via social media? Please don't give out your home address.
I think Instagram and Facebook as Nicky Spinks. Yeah.
No website? No, another website?
It's called Run BG.
Right, okay.
.co.uk. I think if you Google Nicky Spinks, it might be the first thing that comes up.
Yeah, brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been the sensation that is Nicky Spinks. It can be achieved if you want to get out there and challenge yourself. Then there's plenty of stuff out there to challenge yourself with. Nicky, look, thanks very much for your time. It's been an honour speaking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.